to another jewelry making video brought to you by keepsakecrafts.net. Today we'll be making a necklace with the illusion of the beads floating along the strands. It's easier than you might think. The key to making this necklace work is the type of beading wire that you choose. This is bead stringing wire, but it's colored. Most bead stringing wire isn't intended to be seen, so it's just a steel gray color. But this has a color, and you can get it in many different colors. I have gold to go with what I'm doing. And you want to be sure to get something that says 19 strands or higher. There's 7 strand, 49 strand is even better, but they didn't have it in the color I wanted. And that is how many strands are actually in this little wire. And the more there are, the more graceful and flexible your wire will be. So you'll need your wire. You'll need beads, and I have today 6mm Swarovski crystal bicones in the color Indian pink. You'll need some crimping beads, little 2mm crimps, and some crimp covers, which is what gives us the illusion, and I'll tell you more about those. You'll need a 4-inch piece of chain, a clasp, 3 jump rings, some bead cones, and I'll show you how to use those later, and just a little bit of 22 gauge wire. Craft wire is fine. You'll also need wire cutters, chain nose pliers, and round nose pliers. So the first thing we're going to do is cut 3 lengths of this wire. Now you can make your necklace any length you want, but I kind of like mine long, so I'm going to cut a 28-inch, a 25-inch, and a 23.5-inch piece of wire. That will give me a triple strand necklace, and with the 4-inch length, that'll give me a nice long necklace that can be adjusted. Before you start stringing your beads on your wire, you need to first do a little bit of designing. Now these beads come in a package of 15, so I'm going to make that work by putting 6 beads on the longest strand, 5 on the middle, and 4 beads on the shortest. And that's where one of these beads designing boards comes in very handy, because we've got 3 channels here, and I'm just going to lay out my beads. I know that, oh, there's my 6. I know that my first strand is about 24 inches long once it's finished. Yeah, they're just going to be, it looks sparse at the moment, but it'll be filled in. So there's 6 on the outer one, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, and then that leaves 4, although one seems to have escaped. I'll find it later. So just to kind of give you an idea of your spacing. So I'm going to take my longest piece of wire and start with that. I'm going to take one of the crimps and just put it on the wire right about the middle of the wire, because this bead is right near the middle. And we can adjust them more precisely in a bit. And then all you need to do is take your chain nose pliers and squash that crimp flat. How's that for easy? Now then we need to use these crimp covers, and the idea is that a flattened crimp is not a design element as a rule. It really isn't. And so what these are, see if you can see them, they look like a donut with a hole cut out of them. And the idea is that you put it over the crimp and then squeeze it closed, and it just looks like a bead. And that's how we get the illusion of floating. Now these are smooth-sided, and I found in testing they gave me fits. Actually, they would slip out of my chain nose pliers. So I have my nylon jaw pliers here. You could also make do by wrapping some masking tape around the jaws of pliers if your crimps want to slide out, because you want to hold this just tight enough to hold it. You don't want to squeeze it closed until you get the crimp into it, but you don't want it going anywhere. So these are kind of working perfectly. And then I'm just going to slide the crimp right into that bead and gently squeeze closed. And that's all there is to it. You can take a little time and kind of make it round. And that's that. And then I'm going to slide on my crystal and add another crimp and another crimp cover. And here it is with the crystals surrounded by 2 beads that are actually covering up crimps. I should mention that when you put the second crimp on, give the crystal a little bit of room, because the bead that covers the crimp is necessarily a little wider. So just give it a little space. Then the next step is to slide on another crimp. Yeah. And then it goes zinging away. Slide on another crimp. And now put your crystal on your design board where you wanted it to fall. And then slide your crimp up right next to the next bead. And hold it in place there. And flatten with your chain nose pliers. And then repeat the procedure all the way around for all 3 strands. So I've finished stringing my beads, the crimps, and putting the crimp covers on the wire. And the next thing I did was I took the 3 strands and I brought them to a mirror and held them up in front of myself in a mirror to determine the length. I ended up making them all just a little bit closer in length than they would have been according to this board. But go ahead and judge it for yourself. And then when you have them positioned the way you like, take some tape, some scotch tape or masking tape, and tape the ends together, making sure to leave at least 1.5 inches, a couple inches sticking out of each end. And now it's time to simply do the finishing. And what we're going to do is slide on a crimp bead on each wire. And you'll see why we have them taped together in a moment. And then slide the wire back through the crimp. And then slide the crimp up the loop that you have, the loop of wire, until you have around 1/8 of an inch, just a small loop. And then just go ahead and take chain nose pliers and flatten that crimp. Put one of the nose pieces of your chain nose in there and just tug and make sure that that's secure. And once you're sure it's secure, just use wire cutters to trim off that excess piece. And then repeat for all 6 of your wire ends, making each set of 3 the same length. And then you can remove the tape. So you can see I've gone ahead and made loops with crimps on the ends of all 6 ends of my wire. A couple tips. Remember to start with the shortest length of wire in each group of 3 so that you can get them all the same length. And be sure to check the strength of your crimp by tugging on that loop before you cut off the excess wire. So now it's time to put all this together into a necklace. And this is where we're going to need our craft wire. And you're going to need about a 3-inch piece. Since this isn't precious metal wire, don't stress about getting an exact amount. And then we're just going to do a bend round about the middle. Well, maybe a little higher up, maybe like 1.5 inches from one end, 1.25 inches, whatever. Really, it's not crucial. But we're going to start with a 90-degree bend. And then tuck in your round nose pliers about halfway up the pliers so that you have a larger loop than you might normally make. And then wrap as far as you can around the pliers and then reposition and finish so that you have a loop with a wires sticking out at 90-degree angles to each other. Go ahead and just twist that open a little. And then you're going to slide on 3 of your loops from one end of the necklace. And so what we're doing, we're enclosing these in a wrapped loop. Hold that loop with chain nose pliers and then use, actually where are they? Love my bent nose. Use another pair of chain nose pliers to wrap that wire around the longer piece of wire. And this is never going to be seen, so a good time to practice making nice wrap loops, but if it comes out wonky, don't worry about it. So now those wires are secured, and we can just cut off the excess, and unlike most of the time when the wraps are exposed, we don't have to worry about tucking that sharp end in, because what we're going to do is slide on a bead cone. And see, that nicely covers everything. So now this one, it's got kind of a wide hole at the top, so I decided to add a bead up here. And it will just keep the wire from flopping around inside that hole and keep it all nice and firm. And then we're just going to make a wrapped loop that will be visible right above that bead. So grab right above that bead with chain nose pliers, bend at a 90-degree angle. Let's see. Yep. Start your wrap loop. Doesn't have to be a big one this time. Finish your loop, twist to open, and slide on one end of your length of chain. And then go ahead and close that loop and hold it with chain nose pliers, and then use your other pliers to do the wraps right up to that bead. And trim off the excess. In here, you do want to feel, see that end is sharp, so I'm going to take the chain nose and just tuck in that end there. And now you can repeat to add a cone to the other end of the necklace. You won't be adding a piece of chain, you can just add on a jump ring. So I've gone ahead and added both sets of ends of the wires to bead caps, and then the last step is just to add your lobster clasp with a jump ring. And there you have it, an illusion necklace. Here's another look at the necklace we made today. I hope that you've enjoyed this project and that you'll give it a try. Consider using any kind of bead that you like, any colors of wire, any different kinds of crimp covers. You can just make it entirely your own. So thank you so much for watching Keepsake Crafts videos. Please be sure to click on the subscribe button so you don't miss a thing, and also check out my blog keepsakecrafts.net, where I have lots more sewing and crafting ideas and inspiration. So happy creating, and thanks again for watching.